Go. Hi guys, welcome to an exclusive interview. My name is Mani Hanif, and as always, I like to bring you the fresh content, lots of really cool strategies. And today's guest, he's actually a superstar. He's actually a living legend, and he's actually one of the top 20 success coaches endorsed by Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn, Kevin Harrington, and he's an expert in performance strategies. None other than Jimm Britt. Jim, it's great to have you, and great to have you here speaking to the panel. How are you?
Hey, thanks. Thank you, Manny. I appreciate it. Great to be here.
Brilliant, brilliant. So, Jim, before I sort of dive into this whole interview, I want to ask you just sort of your opinion. How do you feel 2021 or 2020 is compared to when you started off? What's the key difference now than there was there, apart from obviously the technology bit? What's changed?
Well, that's the major thing that has changed, but I've seen a lot of changes take place. I've been in this field of speaking and coaching for almost 44 years now. So I kind of grew up in it, and back then it was pretty simple. You didn't have cell phones, you didn't have computers. You made appointments, you contacted people, you called on people. You had a sales staff out on the street talking to people. At one point I had over 300 salespeople. So that's different, because today it's hard to get somebody out on the street talking to people. They want to go to the internet and post on Facebook and hope somebody sees it. But there's been a lot of change takes place. I mean, I started coaching before the word coach was used outside of sports. I didn't know I was coaching. People asked me if I'd work with them one-on-one, and initially I said no. And later I thought, well, one woman, she actually begged me to work with her, and I said, okay, I'll do it just this one time. And then I thought, well, I can, work in a few coaching clients in between speaking engagements. So that's kind of how I got started in coaching. But everything's different today. I think I was the first person ever to sell a ticket to a personal development seminar. And that's when I was in partners with the late Jim Rohn for about 8 years. And so, and today it's, with COVID and everything, everything's virtual, but a lot of things were heading that way anyway. So I think technology has made huge changes. Plus, there's a lot of people out there that joined the industry as well. Back when I started, there's probably a dozen top names in the speaking industry, and now there's thousands of them. So yeah. The competition's greater, and I think that's probably the major changes.
Brilliant. Awesome advice. Awesome. That's really interesting, because when I started about 12 years ago, I mean, we never had Facebook. Facebook was just about to get started. And one thing I learned is over the years, Jim, is, embrace the technology, embrace the changes, evolve with the times. So I want to ask you sort of, okay, so you started off many years ago. What's your sort of definition of the word coach? Because you see that word everywhere nowadays, online, out there, coach, sports coach, life coach. What's your definition, Jim, of the word coach?
Well, I almost hesitate to call myself a coach. It's kind of a label that got put out there, and then there's so many millions of people now that say they're coaches. I'm more of a strategist, but I help to guide people, and I think that's really what a coach is about, is to understand the person, what they want to accomplish, where they are now, and what's holding them back, and be able to not to inspire or motivate, but to really find the block that's stopping their success in whatever area of life that they're looking to improve. Absolutely. So it's through a lot. I mean, you got to ask a lot of questions, and you've got to listen intently and know more than just what the answer is. You got to know what the meaning of what they've answered.
Absolutely.
In order to really help them.
Sure, absolutely. That's interesting. So, one of the things that many people have in this day and age, Jim, and this is irrespective of race, how old they are, is the fear of putting themselves out there, whether that's on social media, whether that's out there. What would you say to those people who are like wanting to make it work in the business, but the one thing that is holding them back is the fear of putting themselves out there?
Well, you know, that's a fear. Fear is really, in that case, it's probably the need for approval, or the fear of rejection. But fear is really, it's a made up story. Uh, you know, you make up something in your mind of something that could happen or is about to happen. I used to say, well, real fear is a bear chasing you through the woods,
Yeah,
but actually, even if the bear is chasing you through the woods, you're still making up a story in your mind about what's going to happen if that bear catches you.
sure.
So, you know, I think, you know, it's part of our DNA. If you go all the way back to if you can look at your parents and say, I'm somewhat like my parents, and I've got the DNA of my parents. Well, I must have the DNA of my grandparents, my great grandparents, and so on, all the way back to where we lived in a cave. And when we lived in a cave, our two dominant thought processes were, how do I kill something to eat? And how do I keep from being killed and eaten? So when somebody goes to step on stage, that fear pops up of that fear of being killed and eaten by the audience. I mean, they don't look at it that way, but it's still the same thing. So we're still making it up in our minds that something is about to happen. And you know, I went through that when I first started. I was nervous as heck getting up in front of a group of people. In fact, it was my greatest fear. And now, you know, I've done thousands of seminars all over the world, but it wasn't always like that. You know, I mean, I didn't see myself when I first started. I know my first paid speaking engagement, I got paid $5,000 for. And it was almost by accident it happened because Jim Rohn couldn't make an event and I took the event. And Jim was charging $7,500 and I charged $5,000, thinking that I wasn't as good as Jim Rohn was, which I wasn't. And you know, we step on stage and we're looking for two things. We're looking for approval from the audience. We're looking to control the audience. But here's what I discovered many years later, about 5 or 6 years later, is that when you need control, you're out of control. When you need approval, you don't get it. So if you let go of the need for control and let go of the need for approval, you get both. And that's the key, is you gotta stop and let go of that fear, because it's a made up story. It make up something different, you know, make up something more empowering.
Sure. I mean, I can relate to that because years and years ago, about almost a decade ago, when I first went onto stage, I remember prior to that, I've never spoken to in front of 300-400 people. The only time I spoke to people was in front of my university class of 20 people. And this was a group of 300-400 people that would eat me alive. And I can relate to that, Jim, because when I stepped onto the stage, because I was so passionate about the topic, all that fear went. Like the first 5 minutes was just, you know, pacing back and forth. And I said, take a deep breath. Let's just do it. Because number two, two things can happen. The audience can either laugh at you or you'll either do something stupid. But I said, if you're good at what you're doing, I mean, today, I wouldn't even imagine me interviewing the great Jimm Britt, you know, live in a Zoom call. And it's because of that fear of failure. So that's really good, powerful advice that you're giving, Jim. Okay, so putting that aside, and you know, putting the fact that putting that fear aside, what would you say? How important is a person's mindset when it comes to business, when it comes to, you know, developing some sort of business venture or a startup? How important is that mindset? Whereby some people come from all walks of life. They could come from, you know, poverty, or they could come from, you know, born into a rich family, but they want to still have the correct mindset. What advice would you give, Jim, in regard to that?
Well, that's probably another word that's kind of overused as well, but we all kind of understand what it means to some degree. But if you want to change something in your life, and you look back on your life, the things that you've decided to have and that you've gotten, you had a mindset to get that. So, but what happens with people is, the first step to accomplishing anything is you got to have a desire to change or a desire to have a certain thing in your life, whether it's becoming a millionaire or having a better relationship or losing weight or whatever it might be. That desire is the trigger point to changing, but it's not enough, because if you take money, for example, 95% of the population or more, if you ask them, would you like to make more money? Probably 100% would say yes.
Mm-hmm.
Even the ones that are wealthy, they still want to make more.
Yeah.
So desire is not enough. You've got to take it to that next decision, which creates the mindset. You've got to decide what it is that you want. The problem that people have, let's say that the circle here is a decision. The problem is that most people leave just a little opening in that circle.
Sure.
When they make the decision. That's their escape route. That's their excuse of why they couldn't accomplish it. You see, I'll give you an example. When I first started in business, I started in a direct selling company, and that's where I met Jim Rohn. And they told me, they said, your job is talking to people. If you talk a little, you learn a little. If you talk a lot, you learn a lot. And I said, okay, what's a little and what's a lot? And he said, a little's 1 a day and a lot's 10 a day. I said, I'll do the 10. So I quit my job the next day and went out into this direct selling company, not knowing anything about anything, no sales, no nothing. I worked in a factory on an assembly line. I'm a high school dropout. I didn't have any business experience. So I set my target at 10 a day. And I talked, and that was a mindset. I mean, I firmly said, I'm going to do 10 a day until I get rich doing this. So a year later, I had talked to 10 a day minimum every single day. So 3,650 people in a year. I got that many people that told me no. I didn't make any sales. I didn't make any money. I'd lost my home. I'd lost both vehicles. I'd lost all of my furniture. I had a wife, a child, and I had 5 days from living on the street, and I had 15 cents in my pocket. Wow. That was it. And I wouldn't quit. I would not give up. Looking back, I'm going, man, I was stupid. But you know what happened? The guy came by, knocked on my door, spent 2 hours with me, taught me what to do, what I was doing wrong. And in the next 12 months, I made my first $1 million.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing.
And it was just a little tweak that I needed to make. But you know what? I had the mindset that I was not going to quit.
Absolutely.
And people, I mean, people would say, are you stupid? Go back to the factory where you're working. They'll take you back. I said, no, I can't. I can't go back. They said, yeah, they'll hire you back. I said, no, I can't. I just can't retreat. So you have to have that type of mindset.
Sure.
If you want to accomplish, because it determines, a mindset determines how you show up in the world.
Sure.
It determines how you show up for your prospects, how you show up on stage, how you show up as a coach. You know, you've got to have, as a coach, you've got to have a mindset that you're going to produce results for people. Not maybe, but yes. Mm-hmm. You know. And when you get on stage, you've got to have that mindset that you're there to influence an audience, to make change in their lives. So it determines how you show up, but it also determines how the world shows up to support you. And they will support you in whatever mindset you have. And everybody's got a mindset. Just look at what you got in your life and you'll know exactly what it is. You know?
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I like that. I like the way you sort of put it across, especially coming from, you know, having no money and literally just going through the failures with a lot of people do. I mean, I come across people every day. The way what I find interesting is I like the element where you said, you know, you spoke to X amount of people, 10 people a day. I always say to people, have one quality conversation a day. That conversation could lead to something else. Like, for example, with our connection on LinkedIn, I felt that was a quality conversation, which led to this call, and which in turn is going to lead to me sharing this in my group on YouTube and it's going to open up more pathways. I call it the butterfly effect. Small changes can lead to big things. So what I want to ask you, Jimm, in terms of, you know, the mindset element, how important is things like leverage? Like you've got, in your time, you had leverage from different living legends. You're a living legend yourself. I mean, for example, Tony Robbins, how important was that leverage from these guys that allowed you to sort of make an impact in your market?
Well, it's huge. I mean, branding is leverage and co-branding. And I knew, I guess intuitively when I first started, that I needed to connect with the top speakers in the industry if I wanted to be a top speaker. And back then, some people may not even know some of the names, like Earl Nightingale and Og Mandino and Brian Tracy and Tom Hopkins, and all of these people are friends of mine. If they're still around, they're in my cell phone. And but I made it a point to connect with these people and ended up on stage with them, ended up doing seminars with them. So back then, that's kind of how you branded. I shared the stage with Earl Nightingale. Well, who can say that? I mean, that's kind of the grandfather of self-improvement, Og Mandino, and just some brilliant people. And some are still around, but branding is so critical. If you look at my website and you see the people that's endorsed me, I've worked with these people, and Tony Robbins actually worked for me for his first 4 years in the business. So, when I was a partner with Jim Rohn, he kind of looked up to Jim Rohn as his mentor, and I was more his coach, his trainer, basically, and taught him some of the things that, not all of what he does today, but still, you mentioned that butterfly effect. It's kind of that ripple effect that if you help a person to become better, and they affect some other people, there's like Tony is influenced like 50 million people around the world, and almost everybody in the world knows who he is. Well, every time I think about that or see Tony or see him on a video or something, I'm always thinking, I had just a little bit of something to do with that.
Absolutely.
Maybe he wouldn't even be where he is today without that. Maybe he would. I don't know.
Absolutely.
But it's a good feeling. So I think being able to brand and co-brand with top people, just like a book series I'm doing right now that Tony Robbins endorsed the series. Kevin Harrington from the TV show Shark Tank is my partner in the book. So we bring 20 co-authors into the book, and now they're branded with me, with Kevin, and with Tony.
Awesome.
Great influential things. It's a good attention getter on social media.
Absolutely, yes. It's funny that you mentioned the power of branding. I mean, how different it is today from branding as it is in 2021 to what it was in when you started. How did you brand yourself without the social media tools available? What did you mainly rely on? Because this question would be ideal, because if there's any youngsters who are like in the 20s listening, it would be great to see how things have changed in terms of that element of branding.
Well, they haven't changed in a huge way in that. I mean, the way you brand with people maybe, but being able to connect and get to know certain people that's within your industry that are influential, because in today's world, especially, you've got to be perceived as a key person of influence in your field of business. Otherwise, you get lost in the dust, because everybody is your competition today, because everybody lives on social media and the internet. And I was talking to Kevin Harrington one day, and we're talking about the competition, and the idea came up basically that everybody's your competition. Even the stay-at-home mom that's posting her breakfast online is your competition. And I started thinking about that, and it's really true, because everybody's looking for attention. They're trying to get your attention, trying to get you to like their post or whatever. So it's even more so today to be able to to co-brand in some way, whether you've got a picture with somebody, you know, that here I am with Tony Robbins, or here I am with so-and-so, or like on our book series, same thing, you know, to have something that makes you stand out, and to create your brand. I remember years back when I first started speaking, I was probably 2 years into it, and we had what they call them, media packages back then, and we'd send them out through mail, and the guy says, he said, make such an incredible media package that when somebody gets it, they're going to think it's their fault. They don't know who you are. and I did. I created this incredible package. It was all done in black and white. And it was just classy. And sure enough, people would get it and they go, wow, this guy must be somebody. Well, I wasn't anybody, you know, but my media package said I was. So.
Awesome.
And I had endorsements from people, you know. I mean, you look at my website, jimmbritt.com, and you see, you know, I've got endorsements, but they're all real endorsements, but
Absolutely.
yet I'm branded with all of these people that are well known.
Sure, absolutely. It's funny that you mentioned the competition element, because I've come across a lot of my students, a lot of people I've associated with. How do you make your competition and use them as leverage? Because one of the things that people hesitate as a business owner, as a marketer, is that competition. They're like, oh, so and so is selling XYZ product, I don't want to sell this. What advice would you give to somebody who is fear of that competition taking away his customers or her customers? What would you say to that?
Well, what I would say is that you've got to have so much confidence in what you're doing that you don't see anybody as a competitor. I mean, yeah, I've got people out there in the same field, but I guarantee you that I'll put my results up against anybody, because I know exactly what I can do with people. And you know, I guarantee that, especially if I'm working with somebody one-on-one, within the first hour, I'm probably going to find what your blocks are, you know, hang-ups, different things, and I'm going to show you how to eliminate it, basically, once and for all. So you got to produce results, and you just have to have confidence in your results. I mean, it's like the woman I talked with one day. She's a coach out of Atlanta, and she said, you know, I'm busy, but I'm not making much money. She said, I'm making maybe 40,000 a year or so. And she said, I'm really busy all the time coaching. I said, let me ask you a question. I said, are you confident in what you do? She said, oh, yes. I said, do you produce results for people? Every time. She's like, I mean, you could tell she was really confident. And I said, well, then what do you charge? She said, well, I charge 125 an hour, or if you buy 5 hours, you get it for $500. I said, that's your problem. I said, you know, if you produce results for somebody in 5 hours for $500, I said, and it changes their life, it's got to be worth more than that. And I said, you've got to look at your own self-worth. What do you think you're worth? She said, what would you raise your fees to if you were me? And I said, $10,000.
Wow.
And she almost choked on it. She goes, really? I said, yeah,
Wow.
try it, see what happens. And it was 3 days later, she emailed me. She said, I got my first client at $10,000.
Holy smokes. Amazing. I've got it. That deserves a round of applause. That's amazing. That's powerful golden nuggets right there, guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's you gotta look at your own self-worth. What is your time worth?
Sure.
You know, I mean, people say, well, what do you give somebody for $20,000? I said, well, if I'm speaking, I give somebody about 90 minutes. And I said, if I'm coaching them, I said, I'll give them a few hours with me if they want to fly in and spend a few hours with me, and I'll give them about 5 follow-up sessions. They said, for 20,000, that's like $3,000 or $4,000 a session. I said, I don't charge by the session. I charge by results. Absolutely. So if somebody wants results, they pay for it. And what's it worth to change somebody's life? You know, that's the way I look at it.
And it's that whole transformation that you can bring about you know, and it's so important in terms of that transformation. That results that you can bring to that person is priceless. Okay, so Jim, before we go, two things I want to ask you. First of all, do you have any one main golden nugget of information that you can share to the audience that they can go away and say, right, wow, this is powerful? Just any golden nugget that you would want to sort of
Sure,
share. Yeah.
sure. I got a lot of them, but I'll just give you one. Many years back, a good friend of mine, we used to exchange types of books that we were reading, and then he'd call me up and say, look on page 87, let's talk about this, you know, and I would, and we'd go back and forth and kind of learning from each other. And one day he said, what do you think the word resourceful means? I said, I don't know, maybe being more productive, using your imagination, getting more done in less time. I don't, you know, I said, I don't know, never really thought about it. I've used the word before, but he said, I don't know, just an interesting word. So we hung up, and later that day, I looked up the word resourceful. I couldn't quit thinking about it. It's like going on in my mind. I looked it up in the dictionary, and the definition was once again full of source. I went, wow, that's pretty interesting. Resourceful, once again, full of source. Then I thought, okay, I'm going to look up the word source and see what that is defined as. So I looked it up, and it said where all things originate, not some things, but all things originate in source. So I'm thinking, well, wow, that's pretty powerful, depending on what you think source is. And it could be the universe, it could be God, it could be Buddha, it could be, you know, it could be anything you want it to be.
Sure.
But yet all things originate in source. So I kept looking for another definition for like 2 years. And I was over in the UK, a little town called Chester.
Chester, yes, I know that.
And a cute little town. And,
Yeah.
and so I'm wandering through town, walking around that day, and I see a kind of down a little alleyway, I see a sign that said antique bookstore. And I was always kind of intrigued by old books. So I walked in the back door of the store, and right away I see this dictionary. It's about this thick. And it said, do not open, do not touch. And I was intrigued by it because it looked like it was 500 years old. I don't know how old it was. I didn't look at that, but it was all tattered and torn. So I thought the do not open meant for the people in the UK, not for me. So I carefully opened it to the S's, and I looked up source. And it had various definitions that I'd already seen before, and then had something like the origin of the word. And then it said source, love. And I went, wow, resourceful, once again, full of love. And I thought, that's powerful when you think about it, when you really think about it, because when you decide you're going to have something, you fall in love with having it. Whether it's you're going to buy a new car, you're going to make $1 million, you're going to do this or that, you fall in love with it, because your only other option is to fall in fear with it. So if you take your goals and dreams and things you want to accomplish, and you're planting them in love when you make that decision. And that's where all things originate. And that little opening that I said earlier in the decision-making process is the fear that we allow to creep in. We just got to move forward and have faith that what we've decided to do and have in our lives is going to happen at the right time. So then I started thinking, wait a minute. So if all things originate in love, where does fear come from?
Sure.
And I thought about that for a while, and I thought, oh, fear is the proof that a human being can create. And it's created in love, because all things originate there. So it's fear, it's love presenting you with fear, saying, if you handle this, you can have more of me. If you handle this fear, you can have more of what you love in your life.
Wow.
So I would say plant your dreams and fall in love with them and move forward, having faith that they're going to happen.
Wonderful. That itself, guys, it's so powerful. I mean, it's completely changed my sort of mindset just by speaking to you. Just that one nugget, I'm like, I'm starting to think, you know, and I can sort of take away that information and apply it to my business because I'm blown away. I really am. So, Jim, if people want to work with you, how do they contact you? How do they get hold of you? What is the process? Fire
Well,
away.
my website is jimmbritt.com. If you want to reach me by via email, it's just email me at support@jimmbritt.com, and I'll get that. And you know, I've got a couple of programs that I'm working on. I've got an online program that's a 4-month coaching program, virtual, online, called Cracking the Rich Code. And you can go to crackingtherichcode.com to look that up. And there's a special running on it right now, but it's a 4-month program that you're going to get daily, weekly, monthly. You're going to have all kinds of things that you're going to do over a 4-month period. And what it's designed to do is change your relationship toward money in 4 months, because, you know, most people spend about 80% of their waking hours going after money, but yet 95% of the population don't have enough. And the reason is because they relate to money incorrectly.
Mm-hmm.
They've been taught to get a job, get paid a certain amount, and live within that means. And then they get a pay raise and they go, oh, I can get a better car. Now they're still just living within that means, or barely. What this is designed to do is help you to change that relationship in your subconscious toward money, so that you can have, I'd say, so that money is no longer a decision as to how you live your life. So it's a powerful program. And then I have I mentioned the book I'm doing with, it's a book series actually I'm doing with Kevin Harrington and Tony. We're always looking for co-authors that would like to be a part of that. Mainly coaches, speakers, and entrepreneurs is what we have in there. We're on a 6th volume right now. First 5 have hit #1 international bestseller. So it's and it's more than just a book. It's a PR, marketing, branding, lead generation. It's got all of that packed kind of all together. So it's a pretty cool deal. And you can email me, support@jimmbritt.com, if you'd like to find out more about that. I can send you some videos and things on it.
Wow, awesome stuff, guys. Jim, I really appreciate it. I mean, thank you so much for this interview. I'm sure people are gonna use your strategies. They're gonna reach out to you. I mean, I'm still blown away by even speaking to you. Like, I feel special. So thank you so much, Jim.
Yeah, can I add one more thing?
Sure.
To kind of add to what I said before.
Sure.
The key to success really is self-observation, not self-awareness. You can be aware that you've got a problem, but that doesn't change the problem. You can be aware that you're angry or broke or depressed or whatever. Self-observation is the act of separating yourself from how you feel and looking at yourself doing the thing that you're doing. You know, if you're always late for appointments, to observe yourself being late and ask yourself why you're being late every time. Or in the case of, you know, setting your goals and dreams, and as we talked about before with resourceful, is to ask yourself moment to moment, is what I'm doing right now moving me toward what I want in my life, or moving me away from it? And success at anything is that simple. Is it moving you toward it or away from it? And if you get good at looking at those things and learning to let go of the things that aren't taking you where you want to go. And I hear people say, well, letting go is difficult. I'm going, no, it's not. If I have this glass of water in my hand, does that mean I have to carry it in my hand for the rest of my life? No, I can set it down. And that's the key, is the things that aren't moving you where you want to go, learn to set them aside.
Absolutely.
Stay focused on what you want.
Wow.
And I don't want anybody to believe me, just try it and see what happens. And you're going to see an amazing increase in your productivity.
Wow, amazing stuff. Guys, once again, Jimm Britt, Jimm, thank you so much. Great to have you. I'm sure we're going to be talking again because I'm hooked. I'm hooked on what you said. I'm sure I'm going to be checking out your programs, and might even meet you in person one day. So thank you so much once again, Jimm.
My
Brilliant stuff.
pleasure. Thanks, Manny, for having me.